Good evening, one and all. Good evening, and welcome to Warthos Vibes. Are you hearing me? Okay, the levels is
Yes,
okay.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
sir.
the level good.
Good. So, welcome to Warthos Vibes, a platform that sort of discuss what's happening in Jamaica and overseas as related to Jamaicans. We always try to pick at the hedges without getting into the muck. And today we're going to step into the mess. I am Michael Newton, your host, alongside Las Crawford, Patrick McCarthy, Herbert Nelson, John Arton, with a special guest, Sister Jeanette Calder. Her name was suggested to me by Dr. Rosalie Hamilton, and she suggests that we should get this sister on the platform because she has a unique insight when it comes to corruption and governance in Jamaica, which is a big thing right now. And I say it's a big thing because I'm looking at a report from Freedom House, which, if you know, let me just pull this up. I'm looking at this report, and the report is showing me some interesting points. Well, well, but let me do this. Trevor Brown, you know the sister, and you're the one who suggests that we reach out to her also. Can you tell us a little bit about the sister? Introduce her to the listeners and the panel.
I would say, Michael, I sent you a brief, so I will defer to you as the chair of the program.
Well, let me try and find that thing now.
Yeah, man, I sent you a brief on her.
Okay, Trevor Brown. Yeah.
I sent in your WhatsApp. Yes, yes.
Okay. According to what you have here, the background, Sister Jeanette is a seasoned and dynamic governance advocate. And I guess that's the reason why Rosalie Hamilton suggests that I invite her. She's not only a governance advocate, she's also a development consultant and civic leader with over 20 years of experience spanning academia, the public sector, project management, and civil society leadership. She's also the founder and executive director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal. I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
A pioneer NGO dedicated to enhancing public accountability and fiscal stewardship through citizen engagement, digital education, and policy reform initiative. Well, what you set out here should really, touch on issues that are concern to many Jamaican, not just many Jamaican, but overseas supporters of Jamaica and friends of Jamaica. So I want to start the discussion by asking the sister this question. Sister Jeanette, considering your activism and what have you, are you frustrated in any way by the fact that the government, the GLP government, is not responsive to citizen call for a more democratic governance? Not just that, but also when you look and see what Holness is doing just now, are you frustrated that you're not getting the sort of response you one would expect from folks who say they're enlightened?
Right. All right. Yes. First of all, thank you very much, especially to Trevor. I know he had to put in some real effort, he said, to get to me. But once we linked, it was an easy flow from that. So thank you, Trevor, for the patience. I want to say to the team who I can see, but to all the Jamaicans, big up to the Waterhouse crew, those that are here. And I'm told there are a few from overseas that's joining us. For those who know me, I tell you, I get excited about the subject and I give as much to it if I were talking to just one Jamaican or if I was talking to 100 of you. So I want to really thank you for the privilege that I get to speak on a matter that is really dear to my heart because I love this country. I lived in Europe. My life was good and it was easy, but it was probably too easy because Jamaicans are a little used to a fight. So I came back home and I picked one on the invitation of the government. I was coming back into the public sector, but paused to help some citizens, seen as they were trying to communicate with the government then, the PNP, by the way, this was 2013, on a matter of contracts and procurement, which is my area of expertise. And I thought I would help them while settling into a job. And in helping them, I fell in love with this idea of advocacy and I pivoted to that instead. So I say that to say, and it's very important to me personally that I start by saying I have been doing advocacy and activism from 2013. JAMP began in 2019 under a Labour Party government, but I cut my teeth in advocacy under a PNP-led administration. So it's important for me to say it because Jamaicans find it very easy to label people. And the most difficult part and the most frustrating part of this job is that part for me, that citizens don't think we are capable of just being concerned about our country full stop. So if you talk about your country and you express your frustration under labor right, you're a comrade, and if you do it under a comrade, you're a labor right. So I think it's very important just to set the stage for everybody listening to me so that we can just, purify thoughts of agenda and motives. Let's get that out of the way. I have advocated under both. No, my frustration is not the feeling and the emotion that comes to place first. It's frightened. I'm frightened by some of the things that I'm seeing happening. And then I get frustrated because I don't see enough Jamaicans who are sufficiently attuned to the early signs of a problem. We have some early signs of a problem. And the problem that is most frightening for me is not lack of water and good roads and hospital bed, as much as that brings me to tears. Because that's the reason I pivoted away from a lucrative career as an architect, right? To come and sit in a not-for-profit is because I hate suffering, I love people, and I hate injustice. I have no desire to lock up any politician. I would be a law enforcement officer. I'm not that, but I really hate to see suffering and I hate injustice. So anything I can do to alleviate that is what I want. So my answer to your question is it's still a bit of an introduction, but a response to your question. I am first frightened and then I'm frustrated. I'm frightened not because there are some threats to our democracy, and I can back that up with facts. I'm not here to label any prime minister or a government. I'm here to speak to a concern about a democracy that I think is in trouble. But I'm not so much frustrated and frightened by a government. I am more frustrated and frightened, as you say, by how our people are responding or not responding to what I think is a very clear and present danger. Yeah, it's a truth.
But what's happening in Jamaica today? Some politicians have to get locked up. Some politicians have to get locked up, and
what is happening?
What it
Is
just
happening? What is it that is happening? Why they should get locked up? I don't want to assume what is happening.
well, I think the corruption, the level of corruption, the parliament has before it now the names of 10 individuals who are involved in illicit enrichment activities. I'm saying that. And an investigation must take place, and the result might include lockup. But you rule out the locking up thing. You're not in for that.
No, no. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page about what is it when you say what is happening in Jamaica now. People need to get locked up. It's important, that we are clear on these platforms. And for everything that you said a while ago, Miss Anita, I agree with you. There is, if I may just use a simple example of what happened recently, we have seen our artists expressing themselves and they say in public who have had to face a court for expletives. We watched a politician venting his frustration, it seems, on a public platform, and he gets to apologize and move on. That's not supposed to happen. But it is happening because the people have what? Rallied back and been quiet about it. So I think the problem is on two fronts. And if I may say this, the problem is deep, gentlemen, and the problem is not the politician. And that's really the message I really hope that will be well received by us today. The politician is the surface problem, the people. My mother grew me up. I never had a granny to grow me up, and I love old people, so that's unfortunate. But she would tell me that, Jeanette, every time you point at somebody, because you're accusing, every time you point at somebody, there are three fingers pointing back at you. And every time I point to a politician to blame them for something that's happening, there are these three fingers pointing back at me. And I can tell you what those three fingers represent. I am the owner of this country. Every asset that the politicians are responsible for, I own it. All of us here own it. So I'm an owner. I am financing everything that they do. Every ribbon cutting that we clap and applaud them for and do this is my money, is your money. That's where it come from. So I'm the owner of the assets they're taking care of. I provide every bit of the money, yeah, that they are getting applause for spending. And I am an employer. I hire 63 parliamentarians in the lower house to manage my assets. And I pay them. So I'm the employer, I am the owner, and I'm the financier. That's heavy, man. I'm a very important person. All of us are. So when something go wrong and I point at the politician, look at the three fingers pointing back at me. I am the Don, I am the boss. But we don't know that. It took me 8 years in advocacy to figure that out, Miss Anita. And when I figured it out, it changed my life and it changed my behavior and it changed my attitude. So Jam's message today and with every interview I have is you don't know who you are, Jamaica. Because all of us sitting here, if we really was in private sector, if it's even a little patty shop me run, or a heel bar where me fix, shoes like I went to get my heels tipped 2 days ago. And I hire somebody and I put in that shoe repair place and I paying him and I pay for all the machines in there. And that man start to take money out of my kitty or disrespect my clients. What's gonna happen? I'm not going to stand for that. And everybody is clear. But we're not clear when it comes down to the public sector. Equally clear that we are the boss because all the 62 years we put them on the pedestal and we do this. And that, Miss Anita, Mr. Crawford, McCarthy, John, and Herb is what Jump wants to change. We are the problem. In the same way that employee in that shoe repair shop is the problem. No, it's the boss who not taking care of business is the problem. So that's what I want to discuss in the context of accountability. How we going to change this? But if we just lock up the politicians and we don't realize the power is with us, then we're going to fall back into the same problem again. Which is why my focus and my faith is in the people, not the politicians.
I think that's going to be a hard one to swallow because we
Tell me
grew up
why.
in, yeah, we grew up in a society where they socialize us to focus on individuals
Yeah,
problem
yeah,
rather than you're saying the take collective responsibility in
yeah.
terms of resolving this problem. But you're still up against a force, my sister.
Well, I'm good.
There's
Yeah,
an alliance between corrupt criminal elements and
yeah,
people in the parliament. How
yeah.
do we what do we say to Jamaica? How do we break the back of this I don't know what to call it, but it's been there for the longest while. The
It not
corrupt
hard.
guy.
It not hard. It not hard, Miss Anita. I am here. Sometimes I give a presentation and I call the presentation corruption. And fighting it, combating it is made to look harder than it is. I'm not a mad woman, you know, Miss Anita. I have money I can go make and a life to take easier. Why on earth would I pick up myself and come do this? I researched this problem in 2016 and I look at it and I said to myself, my God, this is something not hard to fix. It's actually easy. And that is the reason, Miss Anita, I pick up myself, left my work and decided I'm going to come here and do this thing called jam. Knowledge is power. That's why they take civics out of school. Because if you knew, then you would know how easy it is to fix. Yeah? Knowledge is power. Once I got the knowledge, the cataract fall off of my eye, me look at the problem and me say, mighty God in heaven, this thing not hard to fix. Let me use an analogy. I bought a sports car, a Mitsubishi Eclipse, one that was 20 years old. Love the car. Father said, Jeanette, where you go with that? It's 20 years old. I said, boy, daddy, I love the car. And Miss Anita, the first 3 months me drive the car, it broke down with me. I panic. I'm a woman, I'm on the road alone. But after the car broke down by the third time, I began to understand what was the problem. It really was a simple fix. A guy was coming every time, fixing it, charging me a lot of money. But once I figured out what the problem was, I was back on the road in no time. So here is this big V6 engine, very powerful, looking intimidating, and it was. But it was a simple little thing that I just didn't know needed to be done to get me back on that road. That is how I see the corruption thing. And I come with the receipts today to prove it. I don't come with bad news. I'm frustrated and I'm frightened, but I'm also confident that all we need to do is to empower the people of Jamaica with some basic information that they've been waiting on for 62 years and watch the people of this country demonstrate that it is not hard to fix, because it is not. We've just not been told some basic things we need to fix the problem. Yeah.
John, you're a teacher, a political scientist. What your reaction to what the sister just outlined? Is it
Well,
an
I
easy
agree with
problem to
her,
fix?
except for the words, all we need to do. Because the words, all we need to do, make it appear as if it's simple when it's not. Why is it difficult? It's difficult because the way the society is set up, it is set up to be difficult. Empowering people
Yes,
is not the way the education system is set up.
I
It's
agree.
not the way the electoral system is set up. It's not the way the institutions in the country are normally set up. They are set up for us to be dormant, meaning we are asleep, meaning it's not something the lady gone off. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
man,
that.
she's still listening.
Oh, all right, all right.
She's listening on you.
It's not. So yes, I agree with her, but no, it's not simple. And therefore, whether I'm a teacher, whether I'm a pastor, whether I'm in the community, the question is, how can I, as a citizen, as someone who loves Jamaica as much as Miss Calder does, or even more? Because every dollar that thief is one less school can build, one less water hole can fix to provide citizens with water, one less house. Every dollar that thief, money go, people's money that we pay taxes for, go into the pocket of an individual government member, when that money should be used to provide services. This is one of the things that the civics don't teach us. The civics teach us to
I
vote,
agree.
and
I
the
agree.
civics teach you to know the Constitution. But the civics don't teach you that the tax you pay is what build the school, provide the road, help build a house, make the water possible. It don't teach you that.
Right.
Because the way the civics is written and the way the civics is taught is not to provide understanding in that kind of way.
I agree.
So it is very much that we need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why, Miss Calder, we here in this group, we talk about something called a people's manifesto.
Very good.
Because
Yeah.
we understand it's not enough to just point finger. The way you give a good example, which my granny taught me, just like your granny, that when you point one, three point back at you.
Yeah.
Right? And we have to think how to turn over the system, because the reality is the way it's set up is not to understand that every money that thief, every money that a politician thief is one less dollar to provide services for the people. Don't care what service it is to provide service. I like to use the example of build school. I like to use the example of build house, provide toilet. How much people in Jamaica don't have toilet in their house?
2025, yeah.
In 2025. Not just in the countryside, in the bush, but even in Kingston.
Yes.
We still have plenty community that don't have no toilet. Why should that be?
Yeah.
When
There's no reason.
there's no reason. It's all the money spent and the fact that the people don't have accountability for the money.
Right.
I
Right.
also,
But
go ahead, sister.
no, but I want to agree with everything that John has said. All I will say, so I can give somebody else an opportunity, is that I don't see it as hard as maybe John sees it as being, because John, I tell you why. I tell you why, and I can do it in maybe a minute, and I can come back after everybody have a piece. People think that JAMP is trying to reach 100% of the country. No, I'm not. I am targeting 1% of Jamaica. If we had, and it's actually less than 1%, if we got less than 1% of this country to understand the things, John, that you and I know the need as fundamentals. I'm not talking about masters and bachelors of arts. The fundamentals of how government work and the fundamentals of parliament and the thing I call the accountability framework. You see, if we give them three things there, less than 1%, but let me work with 1%. We can have all the change that we say we're waiting for. Now, if we can't achieve that, we this as well just lock down and go away hard. And why I say that is for the last 15 years, I have watched this country. And every time I see the government, whether it was PNP or JLP, do something, and the people of Jamaica make up their mind and say, you know what, we can't cross it. Every single time we have gotten what we wanted, and it's less than 1% of the population, raise them voice or lean in and apply some pressure. I live in one of the best countries in the world if you want change, because the politicians in that parliament as we want. I can give you example after example. The prime minister say, "I go so," and the Jamaican say, "You ain't nah happening, bossy." And it's less than 1%, maybe 0.5% of the country got up and spoke, and we get away. So I'm just saying, John, I am not trying to start with the ideal. But if you and I come up with a plan to really invest our time to educate citizens like the six over here, and they exist, on the fundamentals, we change this country and it will not look the same in 10 years. I will defend that for the rest of the hour that I have.
Let me take a stab at it. It sounds like the model you and John suggest. Mark, I know I hear that the old people be saying it for a long while. You point one finger, you have three a point back from you. But to me, it sounds like
Yeah.
it's an easy way to let the politician off.
No, man.
Just look
No.
at yourself. Look at yourself.
No.
Spend your time looking at you, but turn up. Be quiet about the politician who has suck you.
No, no, no,
Left
Miss
or what have
Anita.
you.
No, Miss Anita, may I have to cut you there because everything I have said is what is it? Remember the analogy of the shoe repairman, The manager does something wrong, the manager you put in place. And I'm saying nobody has a problem in private sector, no matter how small the tuck shop or how big it is at Grace. We all understand if me put you in my place with my equipment for do a job, I'm paying you and your farm food, may I deal with your case. The case has to be dealt with. But you have to first know who you are. If you don't know that the law say and the constitution say, are you in charge, then you can't assume that responsibility. I'm an educated Jamaican. Every one of you here are. It took me with 2 masters and a bachelor's 6, 7, 8 years in advocacy for it to dawn on me. What John talk about is the rewiring of my brain. My brain wired to see them in a certain way. And it took me so long to understand who I am so that I can take on the responsibilities I have now. Miss Anita, you see me shrinking away from the responsibility? No, sir. I going after it. But I'm saying I can't keep my eye on the politician because the problem will not be fixed there. It's the people. So I have my eyes on the people. And once we empower them, we will fix that problem over there. That is what I really meant to say.
I'm in agreement with you, empower the people, but I want you to also bear in mind that the Jamaican people say if fish head start rotting,
Yes.
you know what happened to the next. And I hear what you're saying, but I personally feel that Prime Minister Holness is one of the most corrupt individuals to assume that office in Jamaica since independence. Not just it surprised me,
Okay.
and being a man from the street, you sort of become knowledgeable of certain behavior. How to avoid this and avoid that. And when you see what the Prime Minister is doing, it's the only conclusion you can reach is he's trying to save himself from prison, the
Yeah,
investigation or what have you. So
yeah.
just remember, I want you to remember what the old people also say. If fish head start rotting, don't
Yes.
have tail it, don't have the bottom, don't know where. See,
Right, right, right.
feedback. Trevor,
Mikey,
yeah,
I
last word.
what I feel, one of my concerns for a long time is that the people have not been making sufficient demands on the politicians
All right.
in terms of the people are voting, but they vote for what their politicians put in front of them. The people I find has given the politician too much of a rein in terms of formulating what it is that the politician think the society should be like. It's not the politician acting on what kind of society that the people demands. And what that does, it politicizes the thing to an extent where the people don't see their demands changing the system. They see one politician going to better than the next one instead of implementing demands that create the kind of change that they need. So I find I'm glad when Janet started, right? And she pointed to what the problem is, that it is not just about Mr. Holness and his corruption, right? Because the problem for me, right, is that the people not putting sufficient demands in front of these people for these people to enact and to bring into being. So we focus on whether more Golden going to be better or Mr. Holness going to be better, but they're going to be better in their way, not the way that the people demand. Right? The next thing I think is not happening is that the people not focusing on the systemic weaknesses in the system, right? That they need to correct and hold these people to, right? So until we have a situation where the people feel that it is they who are in charge, it is they who need to make the demands and set the agenda for these politicians. We're not going to have the kind of changes that a lot of us want to see happening.
I agree. Absolutely, Lars. Me and you 100% there.
Trevor, are you there?
Yes, Michael, I'm here.
Yeah. What's your take, my brother? You know, I know you are unique take on what's happening in Jamaica
No,
among the working people.
it's not unique than what Sister Janet and Brother John was raised. Because Mike, John, Janet might have been away, but we have an history. Um, and I speak of John, Mike, and myself, where we were trying that same bottoms up approach. But my take on it, doing is, well, Janet say early simple. And my one is very simple too. And what it is, I think there's a very deliberate attempt, apart from Manly. I will go back to Manly because that's when I think I just started high school when Michael Manley won the election. There is not an attempt to have our people sufficiently educated to understand basic things that they don't have to rely on the same politicians that come in cycles of 3 years or 5 years. And why I raise it? I mean, I was reflecting on what John and last and Jeanette was saying. One thing that Fidel did after the triumph of the revolution was to ensure that the literacy levels, Cuba then had about close to maybe 50% of its people who could read. He sent a lot of those who could read after the triumph into the hills, and within a year, I think it's a record in the world right now, he had 99%. And I say this because I raised it with my PNP brethren them and anybody who is willing to listen. That since Michael has stepped, has left our shores, and especially after his first stint, because when he came back, I think Michael was not the same Michael from 72 to 80. That issue of the general education of our people from just basic literacy. That thing has been thrown out the window. PJ had 18 years, and Portia had her time to. But what Jeanette and John and all of us here are talking about is to get the ordinary man that same 30% that the politician can always look to, that they will come to him. To move that, because I mean that kind of syndrome is based on the fact that, boy, listen to me, it's like me depend on politicians. I will follow Bustamante till I die, and whatever is the argument that they use with the PNP. But Janet, I say, simply yes, but it's work that has to be done.
Listen, I'm here watching something. It's a Trevor.
Hey,
May I try not get too upset, but me upset. I'm mega sad, right?
hey, start now.
Kevin, you have to dig deeper than what you texted a while ago to say, right? You have to dig deeper, Kevin, because we depend on you. right? I can't do this on my own, and the six gentlemen on the screen can't do it. Kevin, we can't do it without you, and you have to go dig deeper than what you put on the screen. You have said that you don't agree that the people poor and foolish. Not one soul here has said that. I have said I have been foolish and dunce. You need to hear me saying that for years. Me have two masters and another degree. And me tell you, I never understand the basics about government and parliament. So I consider myself highly educated and I'm not apologizing for that. But with all of my education, Kevin, me never know squat. Just like anybody else who don't have a degree. That is the point I made. I did not say only folks with a master's degree can save us. Not one of these gentlemen here have said that. So we're going to waste time on this platform if we just don't pay attention and listen and don't bring our baggage in, because guess what? Life is not fair. Some of us won the lottery ticket of life. Some of us born in a lower socioeconomic, some middle, upper. The whole of we have problems, Kevin. And the whole of we kind of ignorant about how to deal with this problem. So I just want to say, guys, I don't have the patience for this, but I want you to listen patiently and carefully to what we're saying today, because we're not here to offend anybody. We all have this problem and we have to figure it out together. So, Kevin, don't hear what we're not saying. Pay attention carefully to what we are trying to say. And we want to educate the people. Everything I learn, Kevin, I turn around and I pivot and I share it. And over 5 years, I learned little, and I get empowered and I come here to share what I know today. So, Lance, Miss Anita, I just had to say that because,
Well,
yeah.
it's a platform, the free speech platform, and
Oh,
folks,
yes.
folks going to post all sort of thing.
Oh,
So
yes.
don't be distracted by that. Patrick,
Well, I think
Patrick,
he has shared it and we should respond to assure him that we see. Because
okay,
Definitely.
I want to respect and value his comment because it is a platform for all of us, But
yeah,
anyway, yeah.
Definitely.
Patrick, you listen. I know your head bubbling right now. What's your
Okay.
take on all that you have heard so far?
Well, my head always bubbling.
Yeah,
Um, Here's the thing, and I'm gonna try to, as best as I can, not be a fourth speaker with a long speech. But I'll say this. First of all, welcome, sister. You
Bless.
you take a position which I really endorse that position that you take, and I endorse it because it reflects for me, right, a deep and serious consciousness of what the real situation is and in terms of how to approach it. And I'll say it for this reason, that I consider myself an advocate as well. I never ever consider myself a politician, no matter who I support, right? Because I'm not seeking office. I'm never seeking office or anything like that. But here's where I want to take a little issue with you. And maybe it's not any serious issue for you to, ponder about, but just to really reach a different understanding.
Sure.
And that is that, and I imagine that's kind of what brought you to advocacy. When we look at the situation in Jamaica, right, we're looking at something beyond us, right? When I say beyond us, I mean beyond us as individuals, right? We are looking at something that, concerns every last person in Jamaica. And in fact, when you go deeper than that, it's not just something that's confined to the shores of Jamaica. It's very much international, right? Because for two reasons. One is we've got to look at our history, because our history is what brought us to where we are today, right? We're coming from a system of deep exploitation, right? Repression,
Yes. Yes.
right? And then what is foisted on us? independence. And that's a foisted on us because what happens is that we hear independence and a lot of people don't even understand what it is. I ask them to define independence and, they go crazy about it.
True.
Right? But here's the thing. Like a lot of things in this system, things have gone wrong because what happened is that we try to approach it on our own as individuals, only to realize that try as hard as we may, we can't seem to understand it. And why we can't understand it is we can't reconcile what we think about it with what we're experiencing. Right? So what happens is that when they talk about education, for example, right? They want us to think that education is something they give us. They can't give us education. And that is why we are miseducated. Because they can't give us education. The simple definition for education, as I would put it, is education simply means a willingness to learn. Right? And education has no terminal point. So it's not about degrees and all of that crap.
Not entirely.
Right? Education is throughout your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So I want to clear up that first of all. Right? And you can respond afterwards. But the other piece I want to get to is this. Right? When you mention about the problem being simple. It is simple when you come into the realization, when you come into that awareness, right? But it certainly isn't simple from where we are.
I agree. That's a powerful point. Yeah.
Right? Because what we're looking at is we're looking at a compounded system that has developed over centuries, right? That continues to seek to control us, exploit us economically, right? And we have no independence because independence, again, looking at the definition, is self-determination, quite simply.
Right.
Right? And what makes it even more compounded is that we're living in a situation where we think that, the problems is confined just to our shores. No, it is international because we're up against a system that is way more than Jamaica. Right? We commonly call it imperialism, but again, a lot of people get lost in what that means. Right? It means that it's an international system of control. Right? So here's where all the things get muddled and people don't understand. So they can't understand how the government works and all of that. And that includes the politicians too.
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick.
Right?
Yes.
It includes the politicians because the politician is no better. He might go into office thinking that he can make a difference. Right? And when he realizes that he can't budge anything, he decides to fend for himself and take the selfish way out.
Yeah, very true.
Holness.
Very true.
Right?
Very true. Yeah.
So the whole thing about it is that you have to be of integrity, first of all. Right? And if you're going to be of integrity, then you're going to take the route of the advocate. And if you take the route of the advocate, it means that you're going to educate yourself. You're going to educate yourself before you look to impact others. Because that's all you can do, impact them to start to come into a realization of self-education.
Yeah, man. No, man.
Learn from the experiences. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
I agree with you. The only thing I would want to add and ask you to think about, you said something very powerful a while ago, which I agree with. You said, Jeanette, you said simple, but if you have not yet come into an understanding, it's not. And I agree with you, which is why, Mr. McCarthy, I used the example of the Mitsubishi Eclipse. It was a simple little matter, but if you don't know, you stand up there the whole night and look on the engine and can't reach your yard because it's complicated to a man who just don't understand how a car work. But it is simple. Everything. Sometimes my father called me and can't do something on the phone. Everybody here know how that go. And he's there trying hours to figure it out, or him locked up and him call him daughter who understand it a little bit. I said, Daddy, but all you have to do is this. And him said, my God, you know how long me sit down here? Knowledge, things are difficult, Mr. McCarthy, until you know, and then it becomes simple. So I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%. And I am still ignorant. But guess what? All my life, I have been afraid to. For example, I'm a Christian, and I used to be afraid to go and tell people about Jesus Christ because they're going to ask me something I don't know. So I wouldn't say nothing. I used to be the same way about governance and government. Boy, I need to have all the answers because if I go there and somebody asks me, I'm going to know. No, that's where that lie. For the last 5 years, I have dedicated to learning and I have learned a lot and I'm contributing a lot. But my methodology is as I learn, I share. As I learn, I share. I become more empowered, others become more empowered. And let me tell you something, I have tested it. I've gone into workshops and I will tell people a simple little truth. The money is ours. And that simple thing is the last get buried in their psyche and they walk back out. A lady called me the other day. I didn't know there were Tainos still in Jamaica. You remember Tainos, the original people them? I never know them still there. One Taino lady come with her husband to a workshop I had. I was telling them about the budget. She learned so much. She bring her husband. And she said when she left the workshop, she in a one taxi and the news come on and she said to the taxi man, you know, say free money that them a talk about. And the man said, no man, a government money. She said, no, sir, a free money. And the man said, no. So she walked out of a workshop, Mr. McCarthy, with one bit of empowerment in her mind that this money is mine. And when I listen to the news now, I now hear about government money. It's my money. And what does it do? Immediately, her behavior changes. Her sense of ownership changes. And a one dege thing, she come out of the thing remembering. That is empowering, my brother. Yeah?
But if I can say one little thing before I leave it alone is the other piece I wanted to comment on, which you said, is in terms of knowing who you are,
Yes.
because that is the absolute key to everything.
It is. Yes, it
Everything.
is. Everything.
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 Right?
Yeah.
And here's why. Right? Here's why. The education system that you're exposed to, that is foisted on you. Let me put it that way. Right? The
Yeah.
government system that's foisted on you. Right? The trading system that's foisted on you. The international economy that's foisted on you. All developed through a system of colonialism, which is not a system of integrity, which is not a system which speak
True.
to people like me and you, and
True.
it's not a system that has anything to do with our development.
I agree. I agree. I agree, Mr. McCarthy, in 2025. And again, been ashamed to say it. Just 2 years ago, it really dawned on me. This whole thing about independence, me not even like use the word again because we're not, right? We still have a king. And when we get rid of the king in England, we still have a king in Jamaica. And I don't say that disrespectfully about the current prime minister. We have a system that sets up a prime minister. And as somebody who was a part of drafting the constitution, say, we have created a constitutional dictator. The problem don't begin with Mr. Holness. It begins with a constitution that was formed in 1961, which we can change, right? So I am just here to say that the system, I agree, is not for us, but it's not the worst system in the world. And I want to make another quick comment and I'll stop. It doesn't matter if our prime minister is corrupt or not. If we take out one corrupt prime minister, let's say he gets voted out, let's say he's corrupt, let's say the courts prove it or not, The system is so set up that if another one replaces him, we're not no better off. I'm not here to try to convince anybody to get rid of a corrupt politician. That is a waste of my time. I want to get rid of a system that props up any prime minister who decides they want to be corrupt. A system that says you pay his salary, yeah, right? You give him all the money to go out there and do what he needs to do. But you can't tell him, say, if he's not doing a good job or if he or she is robbing you, you can't fire them. That's crazy. So I want to change the system that gives the people the power, which is really where it should be. That's why we should be here. It's not about a prime minister alone. Yeah. And by the way, folks, if we have a prime minister who is corrupt, he cannot do it on his own. I want to tell you that an opposition is in the house being paid by you and I to do a particular job. And if the opposition in Jamaica was doing their job, we wouldn't get as far as where we are now with the problem. And that is something I need us to talk about. Because I don't pay a PNP, you know. I don't pay no PNP. The Constitution of Jamaica don't talk about a political party, but it pays parliamentarians in the House to address the concerns you and I have. And I can sit here and I can tell you concern after concern after concern that JAMP and NIA and Advocates Network and Stand Up Jamaica will raise. And up to now, the parliamentarians that we pay to go in there and stand up and say this cannot work have not opened their mouths as yet. So
Yeah,
the
but you
problem
gotta go
is
further though.
also, say that again?
Now, so you gotta go further though. You stop at the opposition.
Take the baton. Take the baton.
I would wanna say that's not where it stops.
No, it's
right?
not. It
stops with us as individuals. Because it means that everybody have to become engaged. Because as we said earlier on, we don't hold them as no ideal.
Yeah, but that's not fair to me. But now I'm gonna get that one there. Because from my sit down here, you know I have been saying our responsibility.
I know you said it,
right?
but I'm just saying that you stop short right there when you
No, me can't stop short if me can't stop short if me done say the people are the ones in charge. I need to deal with it. The point I'm trying to make, folks, is that we have a system. It's an accountability framework, and we pay. I'm going to say something, and this is important. Hear me on this, folks. There are 5 watchdogs of government. 5. Yeah? We have the Parliament of Jamaica. And by the way, this is something I only learned 3 years ago. It's not the opposition that we are paying to call out a government, to monitor the government, and to watch a government. I did not know this. It is every parliamentarian that is not in the cabinet. What does that mean, Jamaica? It means that Robert Miller, backbencher on the government side, Tova Hamilton, Moreland Wilson, all of them, we pay them to do exactly what we think the opposition is supposed to be doing. Every backbencher, whether they're sitting behind the government or they're sitting on the other side, we pay them to monitor and be the watchdogs on our behalf. Mr. McCarthy, I never know that. Maybe just think of the opposition job. But you know, one of the persons who said that, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the opening of Parliament on the 29th of September 2020, the Prime Minister himself said that. And we are paying them to do that. So that's one. The first watchdog are the parliamentarians in the House. They get the Auditor General's report, ball out. They are the first ones to get the Integrity Commission report, ball out. MOCA, ball out. FID, they're the first ones to know when something has gone wrong. The next watchdog is the media. All of we here have to work every day. We're busy. So the media is in the parliament and everywhere, post-cabinet press briefing, asking questions, watching what is happening to come back to tell us. The media is the key linchpin as well to a democracy. What's the third? State watchdog agencies. So we pay 120 out of them at the Auditor General, 150 out of them over at the Integrity Commission, another 150 over at MOCA, not so many down at the FID. There is the Revenue Protection Division, what we're not talking about enough. The state has watchdogs to watch the way our government spending our money, wasting our money, stealing our money, come back to tell us, the media and the parliament. And then there are two other watchdogs, civil society organizations like JAMP, because citizens have to go out and work as well. So I have the time to focus, to follow up in a way the average citizen doesn't. But at the end of the day, the number 5 is every single citizen of Jamaica, whether or not you vote, is a watchdog for this very powerful entity called a government. 5 watchdogs, and all of them have to do them work. And yet, in spite of that, we have corrupt politicians sitting down in the house and nothing now go on. And we must blame the politician when them 5 they not do what them supposed to do. Nah, man. We have to take some of the blame.
You know what,
Well,
man?
Michael,
Just
blame
hold
the
on, my
system.
brother. Hold on.
Allow other people to talk.
Hold on. Just a minute. Just a minute, John. Miss Calder, in all what you say, I listen to you, Patrick,
Yes.
and one thing that stand out for me in the discussion, and Herb, I want you to address it.
Yeah.
Where is the justice in all of this? Where is the justice? Because yes, the system set up a certain way, yes, but look what happened. Mario Dean,
Yeah.
they beat him to death, and it's like they just slap the police officers, on the hand. And where is the justice?
Excellent. Excellent question.
Because probably you can, and when I talk about justice, and I talk about criminal justice, I go much deeper because each of us know injustice when we see it.
Yeah.
You understand? So where is the justice, Herb? How can we speak to this?
what I was about to say is that as the diaspora and representing the diaspora organization that talk about crime and security, nobody in Jamaica appears to be respecting law and order. Nobody in Jamaica appears to be following any enforcement regulations. As a matter of fact, the media has not been aggressively, Ms. Calder, and good to see you after all this time.
Yeah,
The
man.
media has not been aggressively asking questions of the
I agree.
what's that lady who announced we were missing $3 trillion the other day, right?
Yeah, me.
How do you wait till 10 years time
Yeah.
and you're the auditor general and you can't speak about missing funds for 10 years, right? If you are the tax department, you cannot talk about people failing to pay their taxes and the country running into difficulties. You have to be able to have a certain freedom. It's not freedom of expression, but freedom to deal with these things and not wait. If Mr. Holness is sincere, we wouldn't have to all wait as citizens to say our piece. We should be able to look at the various avenues of audit of the Jamaican system and citizens and speak up. There is money that went into, for instance, the carpet, according to Miss Vaz, that they put down in St. Thomas and Portland, right? And then here comes a storm, and this carpet just crack up and wash away, right? Who recovered those funds from the engineers who put that carpet in, right? Who is responsible for that? The people then been driving through those areas, the cars mash up and the carriage mash up, right? Everything smashed up on the road. But they can go out there and talk about how much they have done for the community. They don't expect to have um, situations like this pop up, whether it's caused by the weather or whether it's caused by bad workmanship. Government has no recovery that they're doing to recover their monies on behalf of the Jamaican people. When we speak up from the diaspora and we go all the way to court, they come back and tell us we have no standing because we don't live there, right? But nobody else is taking them to court to ask the court to fix the situation. Look at what the court is doing here in the US. With everything this government is trying to do,
Yeah.
people are standing up and taking them to court. And they're forcing the courts to speak, to say, no, that's not in the Constitution. No, you can't do that,
Her.
right? But we don't have that situation in Jamaica. But we
There's
have
a
a
reason, her. There's a
we have
reason, though.
like you're saying, we have a king. We
There's
have,
a reason, though, Herb. And you
yeah.
touched on an extremely important point. A very, 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 very important point that I would like to phrase this way. Um, it occurred to me this week on a personal matter that I'm dealing with that if you don't have money, you don't get justice in Jamaica. And it's true, it's unfortunate. America, yeah, yeah. Um, if the People's National Party, who happen to be the opposition now, it's the same whenever it changes. But the opposition is there, and on several occasions, they have taken the government to court. And on several occasions, with the exception of one, they have won. It tells me that if an opposition could not find the money, follow me now, folks. If the opposition didn't have some KC and QC friends that could probably do some pro bono work, all of those matters that an opposition took to the courts and the court was able to say, you are correct, the rights of the Jamaican people have been breached. If an opposition cannot find the money, Herb, do you understand the implications of that? It means that the rights of the Jamaican people would have been breached without any fight. In the United States of America, there is money, my brother. I still think there's enough money here, but I'm pointing out the fact that these organizations are well funded with endowment funds, yeah, with legal defense funds already put in place. They use, you name them, NAACP, UCLA, all of them well funded. I don't know how they do it, but they have the money. So that when they see a president taking advantage of the citizens, these institutions, they don't even need to wait on another politician. These institutions can take that president or that party to court. In Jamaica, that don't exist. And I am frightened by the fact that, hear me on this, when the government breaches rights or may not have breached rights and somebody goes and take the government to court, a government can just dip into a very deep well called public funds, right? And they can defend their position, whether they are right or whether they are wrong. The public funds that we, the same people whose rights they probably breached, are there for them to dip into. But God help the people if we do not have an opposition with enough friends what then go on Manley Law School with, who can say, boss man, may we do it for you. There is something wrong with that, Herb. I believe that public funds should be provided to both parliamentarians who are in the House who want to challenge our government, and public funds should be provided as they are by a government to defend itself. The funds are there. Both should go before a court, make the case, and a court decide. I don't want to depend on an opposition who may or may not be able to raise funds. And when them can't, we just suffer with our rights being breached. I don't know how you feel about that, but that is a serious thing for us to do and fix constitutionally so that money is available to protect us when we need it. Yeah?
Any
It's
feedback?
funny. It's funny you put it that way, Janet, because
Yeah.
what they're supposed to be doing in Parliament is debating these facts. It's
Yes.
supposed to
Yeah.
happen in the Parliament first
And
and
it does.
foremost,
And it does
right?
happen first.
But then those in the Parliament,
Yeah.
if they're able to influence the private sector,
Hmm.
they should take it to the private sector and ask the private sector for help
No, me not
in
agree with the
bringing
verb.
pressure to bear
No.
on the government because they fund the government.
Oh,
They basically fund
oh,
elections.
yes. And I mean, I think they do that. I think that is a practice here in Jamaica as well. I think, no, no, whether or not it is successful, Mr. McCarthy, is another story. But I think both sides have private sector people who they will go to. You might feel that one side have more, but it is something
But
that both
I
sides
think
do.
it's a
But
big
that,
misconception
tell me.
because here's where it really get muddled,
Hmm.
right? When you start looking at money as something which determines everything, right? Yet money by itself does nothing because money is something we make. Money is man-made and it's made for utilization. That's why we design it. It comes by design. That's how the system is designed. That is the root of the system. Why you think the workers are slaves and don't pay us? Money, right? Why you think the crown, right? Charter people to steal land and call it crown land. That's how it all got started. That's how colonialism starts, right? Because it becomes money of the crown, right? Money is a symbol of the value, right? It is something we created. But they try to put that spin on it as if it is something by itself with some kind of power. It has no power. We are the power behind it. That's why when you teach the class and the Taino attendee, right, said that she understand no, it's not government money, it's our money. Yes, because it's we produce it. Black people are responsible for the building of imperialism. It was built on the back of black people, slaves, they call us.
Yeah.
Because we were not slaves, we were enslaved. But what happened is that we, again, right, we're so duped, we were stripped. We were completely stripped of our identity. Right?
Yeah.
And we have this false concept to this day that money can buy you anything. No. It is we who determine. That is the real power. We.
But Patrick, justice in the system, it costs something.
But that's how the
And
system
that
is
is
set
where
up.
the inequality,
That's how the system is set up.
that is where the inequality comes in for some people to stand up for their rights because justice costs something in the
Yes.
system.
In the system we
And
live in,
if you
we
don't,
who have money can make the justice.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because we don't exercise
So
our power. We don't
don't
realize
play.
our
That
power to
is
exercise.
where equity in the system comes in, Patrick, in keeping out some sections of the population so that they can stand up for themselves. Because as seen with the example of the PNP having money to contest certain irregularities that the government has done, if the PNP did not have that money to conduct those judgments, I mean, nothing would have been done.
Of
Look at
course.
the
That's why
identification.
that's totally understandable.
Look at the
But it
identification
needs to change.
system that the government was trying to bring in, and the kind of breaches of privacy that people would have to undergo to be
Correct.
part of that
Right. Correct. Lance.
the identification system. The ordinary Jamaican has no
Correct.
power in
Absolutely.
contesting their rights in that kind of situation.
The only
So
power we had was to come together, though, lads, and that's what we have forgotten how to do. Because as an
exactly,
individual, we have none. But you see, when we come together, we didn't need a dime. But we have lost that. I don't
Yes.
know. I mean, last you are from the days when me have to sit at your feet and beg you to tell me how we did it back in the days. But I want to say that Jamaicans also need to get rid of this idea that going into the streets is somehow, I don't know, maybe because we did it a little violently, but in a democracy, and I've said this to people because I have organized protests. In a democracy, you don't have your leader on speed dial. So when a decision is taken in a house, and you can go in there, but you're not allowed to speak, right? In a democracy, in all of them across the world, citizens place their body in a street. Yeah, that's what you do. And you put what you feel on a piece of cardboard paper, and the media comes to you and amplifies your voice. And the more of us that are there is the more weight and influence. And I'm telling you the truth, politicians have said this to me, Jeanette, we're afraid of numbers, you know. When we see numbers, we're afraid. And why is that? Because a democracy is about numbers. It
And
is
that's why
about
the
what they are.
intimidating violence.
It's about the
We
people's numbers. It's about the
right,
people's numbers.
right. So I'm just saying that I just want us to remember that we do have power. We don't need money. We need it if we're going to the courthouse. But if we're gonna go and stand before George William Garden House, we don't need it. We have simply forgotten the art of how to do that. Yeah, yeah.
I want to say something here. I'm listening to the conversation and I keep on asking myself,
Yeah, lads.
we have a system in place,
Uh-huh.
yet still we have a prime minister who turn around and challenge the very laws that he passed.
Yes, yes. But it is a system that allows him to do that. Yeah. And
It's
it is his
nothing new,
right.
though, Mike.
It's a
It,
system. It's a
It's
system, or
nothing new.
because he has access to money.
no, no,
Both,
no. It is a
both,
system.
The,
both.
ne-
It,
the next point I want to raise is the fear factor.
yes.
There's one thing about this government, they are strong on using the police and probably the army. So the fear factor is what I think is holding Jamaican back. But how you explain a prime minister who turn around, give you a pail of milk and then turn around and kick it over? That
That's
does,
nothing new, Mikey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
That's
easy
nothing
explanation.
new. The system facilitates that kind of hypocrisy. The
Yes.
system gives them that power because the
but we're
people
but
have
using
no control over them,
Mm.
right?
And
If
Lance, I want to be fair. The Prime Minister got a report from a watchdog body that he thinks did him an injustice. He felt that there was bits of information in it that did not need to be shared. Where there's a report on your findings, but he also felt there was personal and private information like pertaining to his parents and their accounts and all of that. I am the one under investigation. If the prime minister, as a citizen of the country, which he also is, thinks that his rights have been trampled on by a watchdog agency, we have a system that says the prime minister has a right to go before the courts and say, I want you to review what this government agency has done in case my rights have been trampled on. It is a right he has, and I will defend his right to go and fight for his rights. Now, here's the other side of it. Every Jamaican who is here needs to say what Mr. McCarthy just said. Bossy, you give them the power. You see him one. So you get to decide as a Jamaican citizen if you want to vote for somebody who decides to create a law and when it juke him, gone to court to match down that law. So those is a system that I like. It's a system that said the prime minister can go to the court. But the public can decide whether they want somebody like that. And I like a system that facilitates both. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Trevor Brown.
Yes, Michael.
Yeah, let me hear. You've been silent. What?
Yes, I've been listening, more listening than talking.
There is a
But
thing up on the screen from Colleen James, and she
yeah,
said media justice watchdogs are all compromised. Is it true you're in Jamaica?
Okay, what I would say, Michael, and up until, well, recent, we have been having this discussion as to whether there is anything called free press anywhere in the world. Jamaica, no exception. And I would say, no, there's nothing that's called a free press because it comes back to what we say, who pays the piper, call the tune.
Yeah.
Yes, and it reflects itself in a number of ways. And I can show you. I'll just show you one example that I've always used. Um, and I can recall when our national airline was in the hands of uh, Bootstrap, ATL, Sandal, but that whole group conglomerate. Our departure tax were not being handed over to the government. And it was found out I think very late in the game that it was being, what we pay was being incorporated in the Sandals cash flow or the ATL cash flow or in that group, generally speaking, cash flow. Up to this date, I am looking. Gleaner had it on a headline story on a Sunday Gleaner. Up to this present day, Observer is about what? 30 years old, I'm trying to remember. But up to this day, I am looking for a story which Observer carries that news, which says that this was happening during the tenure of when Bootstrap had control of Air Jamaica. So what it says now, what you call it, whistleblower thing, is something that we try to, and we've been a lot of discussion on it in Jamaica, whether it was good for us, it was operational. Okay? And I am just saying, Michael, on this media thing, that there are a lot of things that I know personally from where from my association with the media, that goes wrong within media houses that media workers see. But the fact that if you say, then it's a matter of whether you're outside looking for work or you remain inside. So it's who pays you or who control the media that determines. And even in America, Mikey and John and Las and all of you guys, I remember, I think it was Washington Post, which was controlled by Bezos, when there was an issue that they took with regards to some of the stuff that Trump was saying, which was close to the election, and they wanted to put out a story on it. It would have been their lead story. And yet Bezos said, no, that cannot go, because just Bezos and Trump were buddies. And he figured it will have impacted on negatively on what Trump did. So my thing is that it is circumscribed, that whole media, what you call it, fairness of media and those kinds of stuff. Circumscribed by ownership.
by the
Okay, my
ownership.
bad.
Can
Yeah,
I
by
can
the
I
ownership.
ask you a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Trevor, you on the subject of the media, right? You
Yes.
mentioned about the media, right?
Yes, sir.
Would you consider how would you say that the media has changed since the earlier days? I mean, no, yes, you still have ownership in terms of like Jeff Bezos and so on owning Washington Post, but at the same time, as the media changed, and how has it changed? Would you see? Has it been changed in the good direction or the bad direction?
How you say it? It's
No, I'm
tweaking.
asking you. I'm asking you.
No, no, I don't see any major changes. And Mikey and John will bear me this out. I don't know if Les and the other comrades were here in Jamaica during that time. When what we saw in the Gleaner, in the taking down of Mike and Manley, The only other previous instance of that, or where the test case of it was during the takedown of Allende in Chile, and there was a
Well,
guy who was called Saul Landis that came here and really exposed what was happening. And there was a book. I think I'm one of the few guys who still have a copy of the book that came out of that press conference that we had, where there was
well,
the same kind of pattern. No, but why I say that? Why I say that? If you notice what is happening, and one of my good friends who have had to leave Jamaica Observer because he was the only person inside here who was maybe giving the opposition party a fair hearing in terms of the things that he wrote. He was asked to take early retirement. I won't call his name, but he's a good buddy. He just want to talk. Um, what you find, for example, at different times, I thought that when you read the Observer, you know, when you saw this monkey where he put him on over my eye and in ears and something. You see no evil and hear no evil as far as this current government is concerned. But what I like about the Greener now, I don't know if it was the fact that there needs to the people who are running it now. Well, I know the editors or the people who write the editorial column, which is the only thing that reflects what the paper says. I know them personally. But the Gleaner, or they call it the whole lady from North Street, who was the paper that was opposed to the abolition of slavery. I don't know if you guys remember this.
yeah,
At the
I know the
ownership
Gleaner
time
before
of the
North Street,
Gleaner,
so I know it.
yes, man. The owners then were saying that slaves, no, the freedom and something that them should get. What I'm saying, it is playing a role. Its role now, it's more to hold the government to account than what the other side, what the observer is doing for the JLP. And I think even from that instance, and there are so many things that I mean, it would take me an evening to raise some
But
of these issues.
what
The thing is too, what you see that also determines, and Sister Jeanette made a very good point about our money, is that our money now is being directed to those institutions that give the current government more coverage than the other. You understand?
but
So it's a yeah. Sorry. Was that
here's
one?
the
All
thing.
right.
Patrick.
Here's the thing
Patrick.
though. Yeah, here's the thing though, Trevor. Forget back to my specific question. You know,
Yeah.
pertaining to what you said with the media,
Yeah. Yeah.
is that has changed tremendously, right? What we're doing here is a good example of that.
You mean social media? We talk. Well, it was formal media I was talking about.
No, no, no,
Social
no.
media
Hold
is
on,
kind
hold
of
on, hold on,
open
hold
up the
on, hold on,
space. Yeah.
hold on.
Sorry.
Just hear me out for a moment. Just hear me out for
Yeah,
a
I
moment,
will. I will.
right?
I will.
Because here's the lesson. Here's the lesson. Here's the real lesson. When the people take action, right, it results in big time pushback against the oppressors, right? It is social media that changed the whole landscape media. That you see mainstream media now even a resort to having a presence on social media,
I
right?
agree.
In order to have an audience,
Yeah.
right?
I agree with you that
It
it's
is
like a kind
social
of
media that has changed a lot of the changes that you see across countries across the world.
I agree
Social
with you.
media is
The
what did it.
democratization. Yeah.
Well, there
It's what we
is.
call the democratization of the media, but it's as Sister Janet would say, it shows you the power that the people have on the ground, that they can change and influence things. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I wasn't really commenting more though on the formal media, but and bear me out on this. And it's a big slip on my part. That social media and the extent to how it has shaken up things.
Well, so based on what all you guys say now, and I think that we agree with Janet, in terms of the people lack of knowledge. That's why a number of things get away and slip by. Okay, the reverse of that is what we need then is to have more organizer among the communities, because that has always been a avenue for the people to educate the people, organizers going amongst the people and working with the people and to bring them up to standard. Is that you're saying, last Jeanette, Patrick,
Yeah.
John?
She's saying more than that.
That's precisely what's happening here now too.
Yes,
That's
sir.
precisely what's happening here now. Yeah, we're here. We are here, right? Being both speaker and audience, right? Sharing our positions and so on. And sharing our whole, understanding of what's taking place and what needs to take place. Right? So again, we're not doing anything different. Yes, I agree with you. There's more that needs to be done. But of course, we're moving in the right direction.
But how do we address the fear that the people has?
That's
What
how
do
you
we
address
do?
it. You address it head on. That's the only way to deal with your fear. Address it head on.
Fear is a function.
For example, right? When Jeanette mentioned earlier about being in the street, right? And building a placard and all of that, right? And she asked the question, how do we do more of that? Right? We do more of that simply by calling for more of that and calling for more involvement in doing that. And how we confront the fear is because the fear part, is that we are intimidated with violence. When they put the police out there with riot gear and all kinds of things, that is the intimidation, right? Because when government commit acts of violence against people, it's not called violence. It's not called criminal, right? It's called criminal, right?
Is fear the real problem though? Or is fear the major problem that we're facing?
Fear is an illusion.
Is it that we have a situation where just the mindset of where the actual problem lies is not being looked at by the people?
Yes.
Because like we have an election coming, and when I look on social media, in the regular media, what I hear people focused on is whether Mark Golding is a nicer gentleman than Mr. Holness. Whether Mark Golding is less corrupt in himself than Mr. Golding. But
and you know why?
Is that the kind of mindset that gonna bring change to the system?
No.
Is this the kind of mindset that is gonna focus on the systemic weaknesses, right? That the Constitutional Reform Committee has not addressed.
No.
Well, no, it's not.
So those are rather than the fear, I believe that those are the issues, and that's the kind of mindset that we need to address ourselves to correcting. But how do we do that? How do we get it out there to let people understand the problem?
That's what I wanted you to speak to, right? Speak to not what is happening, but speak to what needs to be done, right?
Exactly. How we going to create the change that can hold these politicians accountable?
Here's all. This whole thing is a mind game. It is all a mind game, right? They have us believing, first of all, right, that politicians are saviors. So that's where the whole thing comes from, that dance of personalities, whether who dance better, right? It's because we're looking for saviors. We're still not realizing where the real power lies.
Exactly. Precisely.
Right?
That's it.
So that is the mindset that needs to change.
Correct. Hey, Mr. Nita and Patrick, there was something I really wanted to show the panelists, but also very importantly, the Jamaicans who have taken time out to listen to us. And it really is exactly what Patrick said a while ago. So I don't know if you have a few minutes before I run off, if I can just share a video that I brought with the hope that it would help to do what Patrick just said a while ago. Bring
Go
some
ahead.
questions to our minds that will have a mindset shift. Yeah.
There's no objection. Go ahead, my sister.
Thank you. Oh, I see my battery. Oh,
The thing I don't understand, Janet, is how can
Hmm?
you have a mindset shift
Yes.
when you have a country
Mm-hmm.
where 2/3 of the citizens
Mm-hmm.
have a reading level probably at around 7th or 8th grade.
I was gonna rate it in a herb. Yeah, you can, because I have to be very honest with you. I don't think the things that I want to tell Jamaicans about require literacy. Not for them to understand, but maybe after that, for them to go and use it to the best that they can, they would be limited. But I don't think that, I mean, let's face it, when we changed slavery, 98% of us was illiterate, you know. So I don't think that the change requires literacy. And I really mean it when I tell you, I've been to church and I meet some folks
Common
who tell me,
literacy.
That's
It
that's
huh?
a key
requires
that's a key point. That's a
It
key
Mhm.
point
requires common sense,
because
though.
the listening
Common
that
sense, yeah. Yeah.
the listening that and is a point that has been made repeatedly historically, right? That the listening that really is that it really doesn't take popularity, right, to make the shift, right? Because what happens is that what really drives the shift is the intelligence,
Yeah,
right? That's really what drives the shift.
right.
It's the same thing like what we're doing now, right? The next stage of that is the heightened intelligence, and the heightened intelligence is what's gonna lead.
I,
Is what's gonna come to the forefront.
I am not going to downplay the importance of education. It is crucial. But at the same time, I don't think that we cannot have change without it. And I don't think that people are beyond understanding the things that we need them to understand if they have a poor or a no literacy status in Jamaica. So let me share. I'm not so familiar with the
Yeah, you're
platform, but
absolutely right. You're
I'm
absolutely
gonna
right.
try present share screen. Right. Okay. Oh, right. Okay, hold on. I think I see it. I have to.
Mikey, did you allow her to share?
Are you guys seeing or hearing?
No,
No.
not yet.
No,
What's
we're not.
up?
I think
Uh-uh.
Mike has to do something to make it
Okay, it's
happen.
coming
Oh
now.
yes,
Oh,
it's there
oh,
now.
I can try again.
No,
Go ahead.
it's
no,
showing.
it's there. It's there.
All
Okay,
right.
you
Think
can try
you
again.
are.
Just
You
needs
are an
sound.
owner. You own all public assets like public funds, buildings, and land. You are an employer. With every vote, you hire 63 MPs and you pay their salaries and the salaries of over 100,000 public officials. You are the financier of all roads, schools, healthcare, security. In fact, all government activities are financed by you. To transform our country, we need to change our mindset. Because if we don't, we might end up in Hector's ownership dilemma.
Hector, Hector, boy, you look like you're heading of the clouds, man.
Oh, Atlin. Sorry, I just have a lot on my mind.
Haven't seen you for a good while. How's the new business?
My business. I wouldn't know.
How you mean? You sell it?
No, it's just running. Bought the building, the equipment, supplies, got the license and permit. I even appointed a board and I hired a CEO, CMO, CFO, every O. But
Good. Things are going for you, man. So why you look so?
Well, nobody tells me anything.
Wait, I'm not following. Aren't you the owner and chairman of the board?
I get no sales, no marketing, no financial report, nothing. Board meetings are called, decisions are taken. Nobody invites me.
You cannot be serious.
Kathleen, I'm here to transfer $1.5 million to the company, and I'm short. I have to send it every 3 months. If not, the board can sue me.
These are your employees. So if you have no idea what's happening and you're just pouring money in, then just fire them and get a new board.
If I could, but I can't. The contract I signed says unless I can prove, say them do crime, missed work 6 days in a row, or they're mad like rat, then I am stuck with them until the contract expires.
So how long is that?
5 years.
5 years? So who prepared that contract?
Attila them same one write it.
Hector, my dear friend, I think I know how you could get out of that contract.
For real? How?
Go to court, tell them exactly what you told me, and plead insanity. With that their story, the judge will surely believe you and release you.
Now, Hector wants what is best for his company, his family, and their future. But he leave himself careless and can't hold his employees to account. But if we're not careful, it's the same thing we doing. So we have to start behave like the owners, employers, and financiers we really are. Visit jampja.org and use our free online tools to track how your taxes are spent and to ensure greater accountability from public officials. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the UK International.
All right. I'll see if I can come back to you guys now. Stop screen. Right.
Bravo.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. I think I'm trying to get a message through, and I hope it came through.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
Message
definitely.
well
yes,
received.
yeah, man. So,
I have a
folks,
suggestion.
yes.
Can you, and with Mike, I guess, I don't see anybody else object to this, but I'm going to put it out there anyway, because it's not like it's something we discuss. But I think that is something we should use at every one of our meetings. Right?
I would appreciate that, Patrick.
As a kind of advertisement.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Right?
I
Because
think
it just like you said, it speak to people where they are.
Yes.
Right? And it's simple enough for them to understand.
Good.
It's talking about me.
Yeah, man, it is. And we get ourselves in a situation like that, and we're trying to figure out how to get ourselves out. But I tell you something, Patrick, when I wrote the script and I had my communications officer read it, she said, oh, what kind of fool ridiculous story this didn't? And I laughed last because I said to her, I said, you think it's ridiculous, but it's a real story. And then it hit her at last, and she said, rotted. I'm going to say, exactly. It is ridiculous until you realize it is our reality.
It is true.
It is true. And we have to get ourselves out of a situation like that.
The funny thing is, right? When I saw it, the first thought that came to mind is I was in a meeting last week, right? Business meeting. But the funny thing is that it applied to that business because I was making the point in terms of accountability being the backbone of the business, right? And that a lot of times is that a lot of people like me, you and me start businesses and they feel like they can move away from the business and the business still operate properly, right? Okay. And that's because there's no accountability. Just like it's saying in the video where you might even be chairman of the board, but half of what is being discussed, you have no clue.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So it applies all around.
Absolutely.
Anybody who watch that can understand it.
Well, Sanita, I hope you'll have me back because at the end of the video, it says that JAMP has tools on our website. Yeah. Every employer have tools that he has to use to make the business run, and citizens need information and they need tools to really stand in them place as the employer, the financier, and the owner. So I would love to come back and share because a simple tool, which is the access to information tool, every Jamaican who give up them Sunday and sit down here listening to us mean business about this country. I would love to show them just how to use an ATI tool. You have a question about government? You remember the thing the other day with the ATI where we want to find out how Dennis Chung, and we
Yeah.
want to see the contract. If any Jamaican sitting here wanted a copy of that contract, you can get it. The law says you are the owner and you are going to pay Mr. Chung. But Jamaicans don't know how to get a copy of that, Patrick. We have a
Yeah.
simple little tool on the website. You just put in your email, you click the ministry where you want, you say what you want, you hit send. You get a copy, them get a copy. Simple thing. Jamaicans have these tools, but they don't know how to use them. So part of what Jump wants to do is to create tools so Jamaicans can get involved, become the real managers and the real boss, which we really are. So maybe one day, Mr. Anita, you can have me come back and we talk about those tools that we can teach them.
Come back and
Yes, that
show
would
the
be good
video,
because
show the
in
video
fairness,
again, and show the tools.
Yeah, I would be happy to, John. I would be happy to.
Can we
But I
do
will.
it? Can we do it?
in
Can
fairness,
we, just a minute. Can we do it not the coming Sunday, but the following Sunday?
I will check and get back to you through
Please,
Trevor. I have to
please.
check my schedule. Yeah, man. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
but I would love to. Happy to.
but yeah, that wasn't last time. Eh? I love that. I love that way it ended. And in fairness, that what you mentioned is something which Mr. Rattigan has spoken about repeatedly on his program and has demonstrated how it is used. So it's not completely new, but I think the way you might introduce it might be more
Well,
impactful.
I will tell you that Will Rattigan will tell you he heard it first from Jeanette.
Okay,
and,
okay.
and what he has done, Patrick, which is a blessing to my soul, is what you said. So Will has taken that clip and he has showed it on his program over and over and over because we have to rewire. So I really appreciate your suggestion, Patrick, because it would make a difference. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
Send me the video, so I can
I will. I'll be
do
happy
that.
to send it through Trevor. And I just want to really thank you for a good Sunday evening talk. I came with a presentation, which I also didn't get to show because we got into the conversation. So I could also do it again.
We'll have time. We'll make sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I do have another commitment and have to run. So I'm going to have to leave it at that today. But Laz, Herb, John,
Blessings for being here.
thank you so much for
Same here,
having me.
Jen.
Yeah.
Blessings.
I think we at the point now where we have to wrap things up. And can we go around the on and some final remarks? I think it was very wonderful to have the sister here. The discussion was very good, I would say. That's my take. What are you guys thinking?
Who you want to start with?
Anybody? I don't have to pick on no one. Just some final words before we tune out.
Well, here's what I would say. Really good program, good discussion. We really brought out a lot of things and gave people a lot of things to think about. And that is really the key, because this change that we yearn for, this change that we want, right, is something which requires constant mental work, constant thought, right? It's a big thought process, because none of us know what that change will look like, or how it will happen, or how it will unfold, right? And it's through us coming together is gonna make it happen, right? So I think in that regard, that point was pretty much well made on the program, even when we talk about changing mindset. So all in all, this has been a good program, a good discussion, and I'm looking forward to it, even better next week.
Last.
Yeah, man. I think this program was important because what Janet help us to do is help the audience to do is to change the focus instead of just concentrating on Holness and his corruption is to have a broader perspective in terms of what is necessary to take the country forward. And that is the broader changes that is needed in the system, not just to hold Holness accountable, but to hold all politicians accountable and to ensure that the people's voice is an important voice in creating change in the country.
John?
Yeah, I just want to start out where last left off, because the guest reaffirmed a fundamental aspect of change, and that is involvement of the people, not just their voice in the. I mean, she meant more than just voice, but I'm just using the concept of voice, whether it's organization, whether it's education, whether it's, going on the street, involvement of the people. And that to me is the core of accountability. It means that whatever stage the people might be, whether it's at the level of, boy, we want change from Holness to golden, or whether it's something further than that, it don't matter. It can only happen when the people are involved. And that is really key to me in terms of how I see it. Fear is not a factor. Police is not the factor. Election is not the factor, because people might feel, well, we're going to vote for this way now and another way later. Wherever the people are is involvement of the people. And that to me is the core of accountability in any country, whether it's autocratic, democratic, labor right, PNP, socialist, capitalist. No matter what the country is, it is the degree of involvement might be different. The extent of involvement might be different. The content of the involvement might be different. We had a guy here from South Africa, I never forget. We don't have that system here where the police report to us on police and violence, but that is the core of it.
Herb?
Yeah, I welcome Jam coming on, and maybe in the future, Mikey, we can get NIA to come on as well. Or Daniel Archer, that's the other one you had sent us. Listen, I spoke to Howie Mitchell, attorney Howie Mitchell, who's also one of the directors at JAM. And I said to him this week, I said, JAMP has to be more informative. Yes, they have all the profiles of the 63 members of parliament online, and it tells you a lot about them, right? But it stops there. What have we been seeing happening in Jamaica recently? We see where the same person I tried to get to come on, and this shows what the center of our conversation was about. Can JAMP profile physicians in Jamaica? and the malpractices or the goodness that they have served in their communities, just like how you would do with the politicians. Can Jam profile the attorneys in Jamaica to let you know who has been serving the public or who has been ripping off the public, because you have both types. See, JAMP has to go beyond its this self-imposed mandate it has to service the people, to give the people more information. If there is a methodology to get that information, then JAMP has to show that to us in the diaspora and others to ensure that we can get the information we need before we commit to to the SSLs of Jamaica. Put it that way.
But
If if we knew about SSL, if we knew what has been happening in some of these other financial organizations like NCB, where people have been steadily losing funds, then who we would be more judicious in how we do investments and other things in Jamaica, right? The 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 You talk about mindset, and Brenda, who's listening to you, she said mindset goes beyond simply changing what one does. It involves altering the underlying thoughts and beliefs that drives those actions. We can't just turn around and ask our citizens to think differently. We can't show them a video and expect that they're going to follow the video. Because to follow a video, you have to have a clear understanding of what the video is addressing and why it's addressing what you're seeing, right? And again, you think back about the two-thirds Jamaicans who's at the seventh grade level. Are they seeing what we are seeing in that video, right? You can't make that assumption. So this is why you always need a dynamic speaker, somebody who not talks down, but speaks in a fashion that is clearly understood and makes that call to action for those people to react in a certain way. We are down to 29% of the voting public in Jamaica. I put some stuff in the private chat because, Mikey, your system have me cut off from talking to the people in the public chat. And the bottom line here is you used to have, let's say, timeline 1967 to 1980, 80% voter turnout. 93 to 2007, they said turnout began to slip, fall into 67%, right? 2011 to 2020, a sharper decline with 53%, and then plunging to 37% in 2020, the lowest since the 1983 boycott. Turnout even dropped further to 29.6%. So it shows you where the public is disengaging, either because they don't understand or they see politicians as too corrupt to bother to vote. So somehow we got to get that back up to that 50% mark. If we can do that, then things will begin to grow again. But this is where JAM comes in. You got to give more information. You got to talk about the background of these politicians. You got to ask them to file financial disclosure statements before you vote for them. You got to ask them to deal with certain questions, same questions we deal with here in the US: finance, social
How is it working in the US? How is it working in the US?
You get the answers in the US.
Which
John.
answer you get? With Trump? Where you get answer?
You get the answers with all
Oh,
politics.
we're starting a new
You have
discussion.
to do disclosures. That you have to do disclosures. So you need Jamaican politicians to do the same disclosure.
We can discuss this after.
That is the bottom line. Anything short of that, we're not going to see any changes. So when she comes back next week, you can put it to her that ask a question. Can she discuss the expansion of the information that JAMP has been putting out? Because my thing is, I went through JAMP and asked a question of Babsy Grange as to where is the $4 million that she said she gave to GFF and Dennis Chung. And Babsy has not come back with a copy of that draft. She hasn't come back with any explanation whatsoever. So that 4 million, we don't know if it went up in smoke or whether or not Babsy was being honest when she made that statement in public on television, right? But I don't know if anybody else called her out on it. So our audience can now take up the mantle and start asking questions of government people, and you do it through JAMP. And JAMP is supposed to monitor those questions and answers and ensure you get an answer back. And that's pretty much where I am. Thanks, folks.
Folks, Trevor Brown. Trevor left. Folks, I must say that I am comfortable with the discussion. Comfortable because I like the call for attention to the deeper or the broader changes within the structure of the Jamaican society. But what I am not comfortable with is this notion that we have, and it comes through this expression, why the people must do this, the people must do that, and what have you. I know this much. Fear is very strong in the urban parts. Fear of this government is very strong in Waterhouse or what have you. Because this man, the Prime Minister, demonstrate that he will come under your bed and take you out. Whichever way they will find you. So fear is a factor that should be placed on a national agenda to mobilize Jamaican people. The second thing what I'm uncomfortable with is I don't think the Jamaican people by themselves can reach to that heights without active organizing taking place amongst them. The organizing, I think it's important. The ordinary Jamaican people are, behind curveball because one, the lack of organization. If you look through all of the urban community, sitting association, all of that mashed down. The only organization, all the organization you see is the gangsters and what have you. So I think there is a deep need for organizing amongst the people. Where the resource come from, I'm not sure, but I think that is a greater need than any, because we have to get the Jamaican people mobilized. If Jamaican people don't mobilize, these guys going to continue ripping off the system. So organization is critical. I'm thankful that we have folks like Sister Jeanette and others who in the trench, pointing out stuff, and she's even willing to come today and talk with us. That represents positive, in my view. To see the women up front Not many men, not many of our brothers are up front in terms of talking and what have you. But I see people like Jeanette and others actively organizing, you know. So the, there's a far way to go. I don't think we can bring results, see result through organizing by the next 2 years or what have you. What we should focus on is the selection, mobilize the Jamaican people to get rid of this government, you know. And I
Can
hope
we,
we'll
can
be
we
going. Go ahead, Pat.
I was just asking, can we stay back for a couple seconds after you go off here?
Yes, yeah, we can do that. I want to thank the listeners for showing up today. We had over 241 device, which is positive. I know the numbers going to be even better. But listen, regardless, I'm still going to ask you, the listener, to like and subscribe.
And share.
Please like, subscribe, and share this platform to all of your friends, and tell them this is where the real discussion take place. Waterhouse vibes. And with a lot of respect, brother. So until next week, I beg each one of you
Walk good.
walk good and stand in love. Not fall in love, stand in love. All right? Cool.
We're off here.
Yeah.